Normal eating takes up some of your time and attention, but keeps its place as only one important area of your life. In short, normal eating is flexible. It varies in response to your hunger, your schedule, your food, and your feelings.
Welcome to the Complete Nutrition Podcast.
The podcast where we break free from the dieting cycle and explore sustainable, realistic ways to improve your health.
I'm Kylie, a registered dietitian with over 10 years of experience.
And I'm Spencer, and I've been eating food my entire life. And I happen to be a nurse.
Each week, we dive into the science, psychology, and strategies behind mindful eating and sustainable change.
Whether you're here to transform your relationship with food, learn how to make lasting lifestyle changes, or are simply curious about what true health looks like, you're in the right place.
We'd invite you to subscribe and tag along if you'd like to stop dieting and start living. This episode is brought to you today. It's by an individual. His name was Alexis Martin. And Mr. Martin in the 1800s suffered a gunshot wound. He was a fur trader or a fur trapper at the time. And there was a musket accident and it left this permanent hole or fistula in his abdomen. And one of the army physicians who treated him, Dr. Beaumont, he ended up, which this part I learned about this individual in school. This part I didn't know about, which is interesting that they left it out. So Dr. Beaumont, the doctor, actually kept Alexis or Mr. Martin as a contracted servant and did experiments on Mr. Martin. And there's record of that. Some of these experiments did have some discomfort, but did not do any harm. But still, it seems very unfortunate circumstances for Mr. Martin. However, from these experiments, the doctor would tie pieces of food onto string and then put it into the hole in his abdomen and learned from the process of digestion. And he had recorded a total of 200 experiments over a period of 10 years with Mr. Martin. And it was from these experiments that we first started to learn that vegetables and meat were digested slower than carbohydrates. And that the stomach, the liquids or the contents of the stomach contained hydrochloric acid were from these experiments. So kind of interesting, kind of sad, but that is where we learned our first bits and pieces of human digestion.
That's kind of sad though. Imagine just being the rest of your life, because didn't he say until he died?
Yeah.
Like as this indentured servant, where I wonder if you ever made him feel, I don't know, it just seems somewhat abusive. Like he made him stay, you will be my.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's why now they have,
slave.
What is the ethics board? Now, if you do any study involving humans, you have to go through obviously a lot to avoid things like that. So a very sad and unfortunate example.
Hopefully he got paid well or had a decent life with a hole in his belly.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But kind of a crazy story and a crazy wound to have survived from, just to be leaking out stomach fluid. Kind of crazy.
Yup. Unfortunate.
Well, today, besides gunshot wounds, we are going to be talking about eating personalities and the different types that we all have.
Besides gunshot wounds, because that has a lot to do with gunshot wounds. So now we're going to switch to eating personalities. But Kylie, tell me, where do eating personalities come from?
Well, this idea comes from the book Intuitive Eating, which I highly recommend. It is by two dietitians, Evelyn Tribole and Elyse Resche. They they have a series of books. They have the book called Intuitive Eating. They have a workbook. They have a calendar book that walks you through each day. There's something new to look at. And I would recommend all of those books. It's an excellent read. And I draw a lot of my principles that I pass on and teach to people are from these books. And so today we're going to talk about what they describe as the 4 different eating personalities. And there's a few subtypes.
Mm-hmm. What are the 4 types of eating personalities? I've never heard of this before.
Okay.
So this is all new for me.
They're kind of fun. So the first eating personality, and as we go through these, we'd invite our listeners to think through and identify what eating personality you might resonate with. And there's definitely overlap, and you can identify with multiple. So the first eating personality is the intuitive eater. So this is more of the ideal or the goal that we have. So the intuitive eater has a good relationship with food, and they can look at a piece of chocolate cake and maybe a salad or a plate of broccoli with the same emotional reaction. And this intuitive eater eats when they're hungry, stops when they're full, and even with that being said, there might be days that they undereat or overeat, but they are not living in this place of rigid rules. They don't forget about it. And just in general, just have a really good relationship with food and are able to eat, and it doesn't possess their thoughts. And they're able to see food as fuel, but also comfort and pleasure, and just have this really balanced relationship with food.
Sounds nice.
The second eating personality is the professional dieter. These are people that are always on a diet. I can definitely think of, I have clients that are like this, but also I can think of family and friends who are like this too, who are always on the next diet or doing the next thing. And it's funny being a dietitian because I feel like these types of individuals will come to me seeking validation and will tell me, I'm on this juice cleanse or this is the thing I'm doing, and then seek validation. And if you ever hear me say, I really hope that works for you, that's always a key phrase that I don't necessarily agree with what they're doing.
Subtle kind of.
So the second eating personality is the professional dieter, someone who's always on a diet. The third personality is the careful eater. This eating personality is an individual who's super conscious. They might be the ones that are looking at every single label and scrutinizing every single ingredient and trying to find, the highest protein or like the smallest ingredient list. And I would say there's an eating disorder term or type called orthorexia. Have you heard of that before? Okay. Orthorexia is when a person is so concerned and consumed about being healthy that it becomes unhealthy. And so I would definitely identify a careful eater as definitely having orthorexic tendencies. And then the fourth type of personality, which has most of the subcategories of personality, is the unconscious eater or the mindless eater. And there are 4 different subcategories. So the first one is the chaotic unconscious eater. They're the go, 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 always off to the next task, don't make time for eating. I see this a lot in nurses and healthcare workers. Do you identify with this?
Yes, definitely.
Okay. I'll see it with teachers where they don't have time to take a drink or eat snacks, or parents specifically, super busy. I work with mostly moms. I'm sure dads can get this way too. Or people who are just so almost workaholics that they can't push away from their desk and stop and have a bite to eat. So these people, they can go long stretches and then tend to overeat after when they do finally eat.
I think I literally just did that today.
Okay.
I didn't eat, and then I came home and
you were starving.
And ate a lot.
Yeah.
Really fast.
And you're probably having hunger cues throughout the day.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
But ignoring them. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then so you can either do that or graze throughout the day and just munch on things throughout the day. So that's the first type of unconscious eater. The second type of unconscious eater is the emotional unconscious eater. So eating off of really any emotion because you're happy, sad, bored, mad, angry, basically just eating off of these emotional driven responses. And then the third type is the refuse not unconscious eater. And this is a person who, if you were offered something, that you would take it regardless if you were hungry or not. Like if you're at a barbecue and you weren't really hungry, but everything looked good. So you take a little bit of everything and end up being maybe overly full. Or maybe you walk by a coworker's candy bowl, you're not really hungry, but it's there. You might as well grab a handful. And then the waste not unconscious eater, these are people that belong to the clean plate club, that they always have this rule or this need that they can't waste any food. And this can be, I think this can be from people who grow up having, like I grew up, my parents weren't super strict. But there was this encouragement to finish your plate, right? There's starving children in Africa and China. And so people can develop a little bit of this rule from their upbringing, or I've also seen it for people who maybe lived in food scarcity and they didn't have food highly available. And so now as adults, they feel like they need to eat everything because they didn't have that as a child. And so the waste not unconscious eater might be someone who you eat your whole plate, even if you're feeling super full, or maybe you eat off of your kids' plates and finish your kids' plate because you don't want them to waste anything.
That's what your dad does.
Yeah. So in summary, we have the intuitive eater, the professional dieter, the careful eater, and then the unconscious eater. And then in the unconscious eating category, the chaotic eater, the emotional eater, the refuse not eater, and the waste not eater.
What do you identify with those?
Oh, that's a good question. I feel like I feel like I'm definitely more of an intuitive eater, but I definitely fall under the unconscious eater. I think probably the refuse not, like if there's food available and like sometimes I feel like when I go home and my mom makes these elaborate meals that is like 5 different courses, and I feel like I am so full at the end of dinner, but I'm going to eat it anyways because I don't make myself these types of meals. Yeah. But yeah, sense. Probably those two. And maybe a little bit of the chaotic unconscious eater. If I have a busy day, eating sometimes gets pushed aside. Not always though. I feel like I can't function if I'm hungry, but
yeah, it varies for me because some days I'm like so hungry that I feel weak and that I have to like go get something.
Yeah, I definitely feel like you are a worse chaotic eater than I am.
I am. It really is pretty bad because a lot of days at work, I just won't eat lunch. Or if I do, it is literally as fast as I possibly can.
Oh my goodness.
And that's really terrible.
I know. Or even like drinking water.
Yeah, I know. I've gotten better with that, but that's I have to consciously go tell myself to go give myself time to go get water.
Yeah.
Yeah. So no, that's definitely, I think the one that I identify with the most is chaotic unconscious eater. I'm just eating to fuel myself. I will say though, that especially after living with you, I have definitely I see a lot of the intuitive eater in me as well.
That's good.
So it is really good because like when you said, like, I can look at chocolate cake and broccoli with the same emotional reaction, I'd say it's pretty close to that. Like, I just like them.
Yeah.
And it's just food and it's nice to eat regardless. So I'd say I definitely have a good amount of that. But I obviously we all, I'm sure, have things we can work on.
Right. I think the like intuitive eater maybe ebbs and flows in some of the unconscious eater, maybe some of these. So, but the goal is to try and strive to be an intuitive eater.
Yeah, which that sounds like it's the ideal.
Right. That's what my recommendation and goal is for people. And depending on where they are with their nutrition journey, we might not start at the intuitive eating level. We might start with, okay, we need to have like structured eating. These are like how many food groups and
Like
how many servings.
Work up to it.
And then work up to being able to trust your body, listen to hunger cues, respond to fullness cues. And we're going to start for the next couple of episodes, we're going to dive into more of the intuitive eating and mindful eating and what that means. There's 10 principles. So more to come on that topic. But yes, intuitive eating is where I have seen the most success for people to obtain a healthy relationship with their food, with themselves, and then also to obtain optimal health without feeling like they have to live this super strict, rigid life.
So speaking of that, about getting to that ideal, I do want to know, for those of us that are in some of these mindsets that have these different personality disorders that are not the ideal, what do you do? So for instance, the first one, I guess, is what do you do if you're a professional dieter? What are tips to get out of that mindset?
So one of the principles of intuitive eating is reject the diet mentality. And
Reject.
yeah, we do not need to be doing diets. They work short term. You might, maybe weight loss is your goal and you might lose weight on them, but long term, if they are not sustainable, you will not sustain whatever changes that or outcomes that you achieved on the diet. So they might work short term, but don't be deceived. They will not work long term. And so many people blame themselves and think, oh, I didn't have enough willpower, but really it's the diet themselves. And I hear the craziest things for different diets. The most recent one I heard is a blood type diet, which I think we'll also do a podcast on and talk through some of these diets.
Interesting.
Yeah, so it's based off of your blood type of what you should and shouldn't eat.
That's wild.
I know, it's so interesting. I think that I just feel like I work in such a fascinating field that always has like crazy new things popping up that aren't necessarily evidence-based. And then you have the evidence-based stuff that you have to sort through too.
I think that's how all the diet companies get you. Just speaking about like the willpower is that,
oh yeah,
they're like, oh, just try again.
Right.
And
because they do work. They do work. I know. So this is what, yes, if you are hearing this in advertising, these are all red flags for you to
they just want your money.
Run away as fast as you can.
They don't care about your diet.
They don't. It's a
product.
It is. And it's a product that is intended to be repeated. So some red flags are if they present any extremes. So if they tell you, cut out all sugar or cut out all carbs, or like tell you, I think one that I see all the time is like, you can lose 20 pounds and you don't have to work out. So any of these extremes. And then also if they have specific set rules that you feel like you wouldn't be able to maintain for long term. And then also if it seems too good to be true, if people are saying, okay, I lost 40 pounds in a week or even like 40 pounds in a month, that is so not healthy. And then promises of success. Oh yeah. Without having to exercise or to cook or like making it seem really easy. And then if money is involved too. I always think if I ever wanted to be rich, I could make up some bogus thing and people would follow it. I think think of celery juice. Before celery juice was a thing, people used to tell me like celery doesn't have any nutrition and it's just basically water. And then all of a sudden someone came out and said celery juice has like amazing enzymes and it's antioxidants. And now I have so many people that juice celery and drink it because someone said that it was healthy. If I wanted to be rich, I'd make up some ridiculous thing and make people pay me money and then it wouldn't work. And I would keep advocating for it and keep getting their money.
What are we doing? Who needs honesty? All right. Next one. What if you're a careful eater? What do you do?
For these types of people, we talk through the different types of mindset. So you can have a rigid mindset or a flexible mindset around nutrition. So a rigid mindset is someone who is really set on rules, right? I can only eat something that has less than 3 ingredients in it. I can only eat something that's not processed. I can only eat like non-white products or whatever it is. And trying to get them to get to a place of flexible nutrition of where we're trying to find all foods fit. And sure, we do want to include fruits and vegetables and lean proteins, but dessert and chocolate and all those other things are okay. And we've talked through this too, also about it's about a dietary pattern. And so analyzing whether you fit into this rigid nutrition versus flexible nutrition and how you can start pushing back on some of these food rules that you have. And then for these particular individuals, we do a lot of learning and educating on actual nutrition science. And I think for me, I was a careful eater. And I think prior to becoming a dietitian, I had a lot of maybe food rules and fears. And then when I started learning about nutrition and learning exactly what it does in the body, that it started to heal that piece for me and help me to become more of an intuitive eater. And so this idea of having a gentle concern instead of being obsessed, and then having your life be driven by your core values of, life is about achieving happiness. And if you're driven by this fear of what health should look like and maybe about weight or something that isn't helpful either. And maybe you should read it. I pulled up this quote from Ellen Satter. She's a dietitian who is awesome. She also has some really good work. She does a lot of pediatric nutrition and is helpful with eating disorders and picky eaters. But she does a quote, or she talks about what normal eating is, which I really like.
Okay. Yeah, I'll read it. I'll get out my best narration voice. Normal eating is going to the table hungry and eating until you are satisfied. Normal eating is being able to choose food you enjoy and to eat it and truly get enough of it, not just stop eating because you think you should. Normal eating is being able to give some thought to your food selection so you get nutritious food, but not being so wary and restrictive that you miss out on enjoyable food. Normal eating is giving yourself permission to eat because you are happy, sad, or bored, or just because it feels good. Normal eating is mostly 3 meals a day, or 4 or 5, or you can be choosing to munch along the way. Normal eating is leaving cookies on the plate because you will let yourself have cookies again tomorrow, or eating more now because they taste so great. Normal eating is overeating at times and feeling stuffed and uncomfortable, and undereating at times and wishing you had more. Normal eating is trusting your body to make up for your mistakes in eating. Thanks, body. Normal eating takes up some of your time and attention, but keeps its place as only one important area of your life. In short, normal eating is flexible. It varies in response to your hunger, your schedule, your food, and your feelings.
I love this is by Ellen Satter. We'll include a link in the show notes for this, or if you just Google her. But I really like how she describes that, because sometimes people can make intuitive eating into a diet and into rigid nutrition of, I have to be only eating when I'm hungry and I have to stop when I'm full. But normal eating is this fluid thing. It ebbs and flows. And I like what she says, that it doesn't consume our thoughts. And that's just like, it is an important thing, but it's not the only important thing.
Stop trying so hard, I guess.
Yeah. So if you're a careful eater, all of those things of learning more about nutrition and finding this gentle, flexible nutrition mindset.
All right. Nice. Thank you for that, Ellen Satter. All right. Unconscious eaters. I guess the subtypes. The first one was chaotic unconscious eater, right? Mm-hmm. Tell me how to get out of that mindset, Kylie. What do I do?
Yeah, this is directly for you. Yeah. So people who are chaotic unconscious eaters, we need to help them, or they need to help themselves, of creating some type of structure. And actually my last client today, we set alarms on his phone to remind him to eat as like because if you can't respond to your hunger cues, then you're going to need some other visual or audio reminder to eat. So whether that's like an alarm on your phone, an Outlook calendar, or utilizing a family member who can help remind you. For parents, I always tell them, like, use your kids. You are feeding your kids on a regular basis. Like, eat when they eat, and that can help provide structure too.
That's wise.
So creating structure. And then sometimes if you are super busy or chaotic, like for nursing, I'll have them set goals to prep really fast and easy snacks that they can just snack on while they're charting or in between patients.
I do need to do better with snacks.
Yeah, just like small and quick things.
Snacks, just more veggies, because I eat they have like cookies and stuff there, and I just get sick of those.
Okay.
I just want something a little bit more. I don't know. Just get pretty sick of them for sure.
Okay, maybe we need to do more snack prepping for you.
I do. I do need to do more snack prepping. You're right. Thank you, Kylie. Problem solved.
So yeah, structure and snack prepping.
Yeah. Structure would be good too. Yeah. Anyway, all good. Okay. What about the emotional unconscious eater?
This one, I would definitely say needs to be hit from multiple sides, I guess, or pieces of the puzzle. If you feel like you're an emotional unconscious eater, you would probably benefit from therapy and exploring some of the emotions that you're having, depending on, I have some people who have lived through some really traumatic things and emotional eating has kept them safe, or like sometimes a woman who have been abused or have had just some sad things happen to them in terms of like sexual assault, and emotional eating and like gaining weight keeps them safe, and they feel like that's like a safety behavior. So if you feel like some of these, if eating, maybe that falls into that category of a coping behavior that has helped you cope through some traumatic experiences, to check in with a therapist who is trauma informed, who does trauma therapy that can help your body process some of those traumatic events. So that's the first thing I would recommend, is connecting with a therapist, even without like having lived through traumatic experiences. I think everyone could benefit from a therapist. And so the purpose of emotional eating is it can be numbing. It can be a distraction, so you're not thinking about whatever emotion you're feeling. I've also seen people use it as a form of punishment if they struggle with self-love and they want themselves to feel like pain from overeating. And whatever your reason is, that emotional eating, it takes us away from the feelings these hard emotions that we are feeling. As humans, we crave pleasure and comfort, and we don't like feeling these hard feelings. And even as babies, we're taught to emotionally eat. If you think about babies, if you cry, you're offered food, even though you might, as a baby, maybe your head hurts or your belly hurts or maybe your diaper's wet. But I would say usually like food's offered just if you're hungry. And so that can be something that can be taught at a very young age. And with emotional eating, I think the number one thing that I want people to understand is that emotional eating is okay, and that it's part of your toolkit, of your emotional toolkit. So many times people feel like emotional eating is bad and they feel super guilty. That's part of the emotional eating cycle, is after you emotionally eat, people feel super guilty and mad at themselves. But understanding that food is comfort and it does make you feel good, and it doesn't change anything, and it's maybe not lasting, but it does help and it does make you feel good. And so it needs to be seen as a coping skill that you can use as necessary. But if it's your only coping skill and it's your only tool that you turn to, that's when I would say let's maybe add more tools to the toolkit. and find other things to help. And with emotional eaters, we will work on finding other distractions. So maybe like, I don't know, playing a game on your phone or going on a walk, listening to music, something else to replace that as a distraction. If the emotion is just too hard to cope with. Or the harder thing is finding ways to process and cope with those emotions. So it's a matter of building those emotional muscles and riding the wave of emotions instead of trying to shut it down and to distract yourself. And so that might be through journaling or therapy or talking it out with a friend, or meditation, or deep breathing of just sitting in that emotion. And it is a muscle that needs to be built, because emotional eating is this knee-jerk reaction. It's a safe place. We don't have to think about all those hard feelings. And so I would say finding other distractions is an easy thing. The harder one would be to try to find ways to process, but both are good tools or other strategies to add to the emotional toolkit and to help the emotional eater.
Okay. What I got from that was that at least what would work for me would be therapy, to be able to navigate through all of those feelings, because it would be hard to do on my own, at least.
Do you feel like you ever emotionally eat though? I don't feel like you're an emotional eater.
I think the only one that I might feel is like boredom. But
okay.
Yeah. So I guess
I used to be more of an emotional eater before I became a dietitian. And then I think this is a little bit of a sad thing for me. I remember having a hard day and eating like my go-to comfort food, and it like didn't have the same effect on it because in my food journey, I guess, I'd gotten to a place where I was more of an intuitive eater, and it was a little bit sad that like the emotional eating wasn't as strong of a, I guess, pleasure. Yeah, it wasn't as comforting as it was, because suddenly it wasn't like a forbidden food or like, I don't know, it wasn't as exciting before when I had more of my food rules. So that is, I guess, a risk if as an intuitive eater, I would say like the benefits outweigh. I can still find pleasure in eating. But I would say I have to find other coping mechanisms for when I have strong emotions, and eating no longer gives me the fix that it used to.
Which is, I mean, that's what we're here to do, is fix your relationship with food. So it's not just tied to all this emotion.
Yeah.
All right. The next one is the refuse not unconscious eater.
The refuse not unconscious eater, I would say for those individuals, it would be good to look at your environment, because oftentimes the eating is not triggered by hunger. It is triggered by the opportunity. If the opportunity presents itself, then they will usually take it and eat it. And so looking at your environment and seeing what you would change. So for some of these individuals that I've worked with, it's maybe putting away food so it's in the pantry or in cupboard. So when you are hungry, you can go and look for it. Or if you have, I don't know, like a candy bowl at work, and you mindlessly eat while you're at work or at your desk, is maybe can you put that bowl in the drawer? No, it's always available. Those foods are always available, but changing your environment so that the opportunity won't present itself, and that you can go seek out that food when you're wanting it. And when you're thinking, oh, I'm hungry, I'm going to go get something to eat. So it's more purposeful, it's more mindful, and less of this unconscious eating.
Okay. All right, then last one. What about the waste not unconscious eater?
Yeah, waste not unconscious eater, or the clean plate club. So many of us belong to this. And I think first and foremost is identify why you do not want to waste it, and seeing if there's any place of healing to come from, of maybe changing what your belief system is. You know, if you grew up having to clean your plate as a kid, is that something that you want to continue living by? Or if you maybe suffered from some food scarcity of, again, like seeking therapy of how to work through some of those things. But with these individuals, we work on trying to find their last bite threshold. The last bite threshold it's the bite. If you take one more bite of food, it's going to push you into feeling uncomfortably full. And then after you've found that threshold is identifying if either can you throw it away, and if that's too hard, can you put it in a bag? Can you put it in a container to save for later? Could you freeze it? But practice, and I have these people practice finding their last bite threshold. And sometimes it's a little bit of exposure therapy of throwing away some of that food. And sometimes that's too much for people. So if that's too much, and I don't want to promote wasteful eating either.
Yeah, you can always save it in a Tupperware.
But save it in a Tupperware. But practicing putting it away and not eating it just because it's there and you just want to finish it. And it does take practice, but you can break that habit for sure.
I would also say that with finding your last bite threshold, it's important to eat more slowly, because the stretch receptors in your stomach don't respond immediately until your brain is full.
Very true.
I can definitely outrace my stretch receptors and overeat before I know that I'm overeating.
That's very true. I think slowing down, but then also consistent eating too. Because if you are so hungry, you're going to be eating faster and have more of those hunger cues.
That's my issue. Because I remember last Monday at work, I was hungry and I got lunch and I got more than I normally would, and I ate it as fast as I could. And then I felt a little bit overly full by the end.
Yeah.
Which is like, okay, like I'm not going to die, but I don't know.
I think it is okay, because we just read that's part of normal eating is to have days where you maybe overeat.
Yeah. So I'm not going to be perfect.
But if it's the norm and every time you work, that's what happens, is then finding ways to pack a snack or try and eat more consistently.
Yeah. Or like finding the last bite, like not worrying about finishing all the food, that it's okay to throw some away. So anyway. All right. Kylie, that's kind of it, I suppose.
Yeah. So in summary, whatever your personality is, know that it's okay. It's okay, because our eating personalities might be fluid, and there might be seasons of our life that we might fall into some of these categories, especially I feel like the unconscious eater. But know that if any of this resonates with you, we'd invite you to listen to the next couple of episodes where we are going to dive deeper into intuitive eating and the 10 principles and what mindful eating is. And we'd encourage you to go check out the book Intuitive Eating, again by Evelyn Tribole and Elyse Resche. And then we will see you next time.
Yeah, I'm excited to learn about some of those. Thanks, Kylie.
If you are listening, we imagine that you are probably on your own health journey. Thank you so much for letting us be a part of this journey. We want to invite you to consider these 3 questions as a weekly personal check-in.
The first question is that maintaining a positive mindset is crucial for success. So, what are your victories and your wins from the past week?
Second question, what are your intentions or focus or goals for this next week? Reminder that the simpler and more realistic, the better.
And the last question is, what are you going to do to accomplish this goal? Be specific, and we invite you to write this down somewhere. What specific things will you do to reach this goal of yours?
Thank you so much for listening. If you like what you are listening to, we would invite you to subscribe. We'd also invite you to leave a review. If you do, you will be entered into our monthly drawing to win a box of meal deliveries. Take a screenshot of your review and send it to Complete Nutrition, complete with a K, completenutrition@gmail.com. You can also check us out online at www.complete-nutrition.com or on Instagram at complete_nutrition.